So again, we made good progress here. To conclude this section, I want to improve the overall look and feel of this application a little bit though. And I want to start by actually outsourcing this input part into a modal. Modals are these overlays that typically slide up or pop up on mobile apps that overlay the main screen and allow you to take some action after which they disappear. Adding such a modal and adding the input logic here into such a modal is thankfully pretty easy in React Native because it comes with a built-in modal component. So all you have to do in the goal input component, where I want to create that modal, is you import modal from React Native, and then you wrap that around the content that should go into the modal. In my case here, that's the view with the text input and the button. If you do that, we have this look here. So our list of goals seems to be gone and the styling is a bit off. And as I add goals, I don't see them. The reason for that is that we actually see the modal here, the overlay which we have on the entire screen. Now, of course, the modal shouldn't always be there though. Instead, it would be nice to have a button on the start screen that allows us to open the modal when we want to add a new goal, and then to have a button that allows us to close this modal here on this modal screen. Now let's start with that button that opens the modal. For this, I'll go back to app.js, and I want to add that button there. We still have the goal input component, but above that component, I want to add a button. And for this, I'll use the good old built-in button, though of course we could also import pressable and build our own button as you learned it a couple of minutes ago. Because the button here in the end also just uses the pressable component or those old touchable components internally. But here, to save some time, I'll use the pre-built button instead of building my own one, and I'll give this button a title of Add New Goal. I'll also give the button a color through the color prop because button doesn't take a style prop. It doesn't support it. Because it is already pre-styled, that's why you can't influence it too much. If you do want to style your own button, you have to build your own button with the pressable component and then some text and views inside of it. Here, with the pre-built button, we can change the color through the color prop though. And I will set color here to a string. And I will use the same purple as I use here in goal item for the background of my goals. I'll use this purple color here and set this as a color of this button here, like this. So now we have the button, but of course we don't see the button if we save this because we still have the modal everywhere. Now this button should control the modal visibility. And for this we need state, because the modal should either be visible or not, and that's a typical case for using state. So here in the app component, we can add a new piece of state and use state to initialize it and set it to false initially because that will be my modal is visible state. And the set modal is visible updating function will allow me to change it. And initially the modal should not be visible. Now we want to change this whenever the button is clicked. So for this I'll add a function here, maybe here, the exact position doesn't matter, which I will name startAddGoalHandler. And in this function, I want to set modal is visible to true because I want to show the modal. Now this startAddGoalHandler function should now be connected to this button, and this button, being a built-in component, has this onPress prop, which we now use to connect it to startAddGoalHandler. Now to show the modal only when this state is true, we could now render goal input conditionally, as we would do it in most React web apps. We can add curly braces around that, and then check our modal is visible state, and if it's true, then we render goal input, which internally contains this modal. If we do it like this and we save everything, indeed, we see the button here. And if I press the button, the modal appears. But the modal then is just there. There is no animation and nothing. And therefore, that's typically not how you would do that. Instead of just showing or hiding this component like this, a better approach is to embrace some of the props Modal, this built-in modal component, offers to you. To be precise, this modal component has a visible prop. And if set to true, the modal is visible. If set to false, it's not. Now, this is useful because in addition, Modal also has an animation type prop where you can set how it will be animated. That there maybe is no animation at all, that it should fade, or that it should slide in. And I will go for sliding. And now I just expect to get the should it be displayed or not information via props. So here I'll access props.visible, though this prop name here is up to you. It could also be show modal, but I'll choose visible. And now we have to set this prop on goal input in the app component. So here I'll now add this visible prop and set this equal to modal is visible, which is true or false. And with that, if we now save this and we force a reload by pressing R here in the terminal, now the modal slides up. Of course, we can't dismiss it at the moment, and the styling in there also is a bit off. So therefore, let's next focus on that styling, and let's then make sure that we can also close this modal.